Greetings at Cheating Story Lab. Share your location and tell me where you're tuning in from. They say justice can be sweet, but it sometimes arrives with a cost so sour that one wishes they'd never known the taste of triumph. I am Andrew, compelled to share my account of the most heart-wrenching week of my existence. A week where I believed I had triumphed, only to lose everything truly valuable in its wake. This ordeal began 18 months past when I unveiled my wife Victoria's double life. We've been married for 12 years and shared two lovely children, Tommy, aged 8, and Lisa, 6. In my eyes, we formed the ideal family. Victoria worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup while I managed a thriving accounting firm. Our suburban home was comfortable, our family took vacations together, and we cheered Tommy on during his soccer games. To onlookers, it seemed we had life's puzzle solved, but perfection, I discovered, is often just an illusion. The revelation occurred on a Tuesday evening in March. In the shower, Victoria's phone persistently vibrated on the nightstand. Typically, I wouldn't have given it a second thought, my faith in her being absolute. But the screen illuminated with a message preview that made my blood run cold. Anxiously waiting to feel your touch once more. Tonight was remarkable. Delete this message. I found myself fixated on that screen for what seemed like hours, but was likely mere seconds. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. The message originated from someone named Dylan. As I scrolled up, I encountered a deluge of messages, explicit photos, and plans to meet at hotels. Victoria spoke candidly about her exhaustion with our monotonous marriage, her longing for an escape a moment ripe for her departure. She expressed her renewed vitality under Dylan's touch, the cruelest twist being that this was transpiring while she was sitting beside me on our couch, watching movies with our children. Victoria had been conducting her affair through text messages, some of which were sent in my presence. During family movie nights, my partner curled up between us. Upon entering the room from the bathroom, Victoria found me sitting on the bed with her phone in hand. The expression on her face, devoid of guilt or shame but rather annoyance, revealed everything I needed to comprehend about the person she had become. "Andrew, let me explain," she began, but there was no emotion in her voice, merely irritation. "Explain what exactly?" I questioned, taken aback by the calmness of my tone. Beneath the surface, I felt like I was suffocating. "Explain how you've been planning to abandon our family for someone named Dylan. Explain how you've been deceiving me daily for months." She didn't even attempt to deny it, instead sitting on the edge of the bed. "You wouldn't comprehend," she said. "You've never understood my needs or yours. I couldn't maintain the pretense any longer. What about Tommy and Lisa? What about our family? I'm not content, Andrew." For years, I hadn't felt happy. Dylan helped me regain my identity. Our talk continued until 3 in the morning. Victoria didn't express remorse or sadness, neither did she exhibit worry for our children. Instead, she mentioned she had been contemplating divorce, and perhaps this was the necessary push for both of us. She spoke about our marriage as if it were a non-profitable business deal. The following morning, she prepared breakfast as usual for Tommy and Lisa, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Our children remained oblivious to the impending disintegration of their world. After they left for school, Victoria casually informed me that she would be moving in with Dylan over the weekend, leaving the custody arrangements for later discussion. In a matter of seconds, 12 years of marriage were summarized as a custody arrangement to be addressed at a later time. However, I was determined not to let her so easily dismantle our family. On the same day, I reached out to Mitchell Barnes, an accomplished family law attorney in our city. Known for his meticulous approach, relentless demeanor when needed, and unwavering commitment to advocating for children's rights during divorce proceedings, he was my chosen legal representative. During our initial consultation, he assessed the evidence I had provided as compelling. However, he cautioned me about the potential ugliness of custody battles, particularly in cases involving infidelity. He inquired if I was prepared for this eventuality. I affirmed that I was ready to face anything to protect Tommy and Lisa. The ensuing 18 months were the toughest period of my life. As anticipated, Victoria cohabited with Dylan swiftly, as planned. Initially, she attempted to secure joint custody weekends with the children alternating holidays. She portrayed her infidelity as an insignificant detail that should not impact her relationship with Tommy and Lisa. However, through Mitchell's thorough investigation, we uncovered the extent of Victoria's betrayal surpassing mere infidelity. She utilized our shared credit cards for her extramarital affair expenses, such as expensive hotel stays, presents for Dylan, and romantic dinners, all while claiming to be working late. She depleted approximately $15,000 from our account designated for the children's college funds. What made matters worse was uncovering evidence that Victoria had been secretly introducing Tommy and Lisa to Dylan without my knowledge. On several occasions, she took them to Dylan's apartment, even allowing him to stay overnight when the kids were present. She had been covertly cultivating a relationship between her boyfriend and our children. The last piece of information that tipped the scale was when Mitchell's private investigator found out Victoria had already begun looking at houses in Seattle with Dylan. Her intention was to relocate our children to a different state without consulting me or obtaining court permission. During the depositions, Victoria's true nature became apparent. Confronted about the money taken from our savings, she asserted it was her share, and she had the right to use it as desired. When questioned regarding introducing Dylan to the kids without my consent, she accused me of being overly controlling and paranoid. The most distressing moment occurred when asked about the potential consequences of her actions on Tommy and Lisa. Her words, documented by the court reporter, were, "Children are adaptable. They'll accommodate whatever changes we make." No regard for their emotional well-being or the pain of discovering their mother had been dishonest. Only a calculated assumption that they would learn to cope. Simultaneously, I was making every effort to maintain their routine and stability. I collected them from school daily, assisted with homework, attended each soccer game and dance recital. When they inquired about Mommy, I explained she was working things out, but both parents loved them dearly. In his maturity, Tommy began asking challenging questions. Why isn't Mommy living here anymore? Who is Dylan? Why does Mommy appear altered when we visit her apartment? Lisa, only 6, kept inquiring about when Mommy would return home. She stood by the window some nights, hopeful that Victoria would reappear as she once did. The court trial took place last month. Victoria's lawyer aimed to depict me as a domineering spouse who drove my wife to seek love elsewhere. They argued Victoria was a loving mother entitled to shared custody. However, we were ready. We provided proof of the financial misappropriation. We presented court records detailing Victoria's secret house hunting in Seattle. We compiled evidence of every instance where she exposed our children to her affair partner without my consent. Most damaging was Victoria's own testimony. When asked about her future plans, she was unable to provide a clear answer regarding whether she intended to move to Seattle. Regarding Dylan's influence on the children, she exhibited a defensive and evasive response. When questioned about the missing funds, she displayed no regret and maintained her innocence. Renowned for prioritizing children's welfare, Honorable Catherine Mills inquired of Victoria during final arguments. If granted custody, can you assure these children will stay within their current school district and preserve consistency in their lives? Victoria's response left everyone in the courtroom astounded. I cannot promise about the future. Life is uncertain, and children must learn to adapt. Judge Mills delivered his verdict 3 days prior, granting me primary physical custody with Victoria, allowed supervised visits every other weekend. The judge emphasized that Victoria's deceit, questionable finances, and inability to prioritize the children's stability rendered her unfit for joint custody at this moment. Emerging from that courthouse, I felt validated. At last, an authoritative figure saw through Victoria's scheming and chose what was best for Tommy and Lisa. Mitchell shook my hand, stating, "This is one of the most straightforward custody rulings I've encountered. Your children will be secure with you." I called my parents to announce the news, texted my brother. For the first time in 18 months, there was hope we could reunite our family, just the 3 of us. Victoria left the courthouse without addressing me. Her lawyer looked disheartened. Dylan, who had been waiting in the parking lot, drove her away with screeching tires. I should have seen that as a warning signal. That night, I took Tommy and Lisa out for ice cream to celebrate, although I didn't tell them the specific reason. I merely said Daddy had good news and wanted to spoil them with something special. "Are you and Mommy going to live together again?" Tommy asked between bites of chocolate chip. "No, buddy," I responded truthfully. "You'll continue living with me in our house and visit Mommy on weekends, right?" Lisa looked at me with her large, 6-year-old eyes and asked, "Will Mommy be content with that arrangement?" I then understood that Victoria's composure after the custody battle was not just calmness but acceptance and planning. The following morning, a Wednesday, I awoke feeling hopeful for the first time in months. I prepared pancakes for the children, got them ready for school, and went to work with a lighter spirit than I had carried in ages. My assistant remarked that I seemed like my old self once more. I spent the day reorganizing client files, strategizing how to manage work and single parenthood better, even researching family therapy options for Tommy and Lisa, ensuring they received professional help dealing with recent events. In the evening, Tommy worked on a science project about solar systems and Lisa practiced sight words. These were ordinary, comforting family moments that I had longed for amidst the tumult of divorce hearings. Around 8:30, I tucked them both into bed. Lisa asked me to read her beloved book about a little girl who bonds with a dragon, while Tommy, being 8 years old, claimed he could read his own book but wanted me to stay with him for a bit. "Dad," Tommy said before I left his room. "Yes, son, I'm glad we're staying here, I mean in our home. All my friends and soccer team are here and I didn't want to relocate too far away. You won't be moving anywhere, Tommy. This is your home." That night, I felt more tranquil than I had since learning about Victoria's infidelity. The legal disputes were resolved, my kids were secure, and we could now begin the healing process. As usual, I woke up on Thursday at 6:30. Prepared coffee, reviewed emails, subsequently went to rouse children for school. Tommy's bedroom was vacant. His bed was neatly arranged, not the casual fashion an 8-year-old would manage. Instead, it looked as if someone else had tidied it. Lisa's room mirrored the same condition. Empty beds were meticulously made. Their clothes from the closets were absent, and not all, but enough to fill suitcases. Their beloved stuffed toys were gone. Tommy's soccer cleats, Lisa's dance shoes were missing. I scoured the house shouting their names, inspecting every room, every closet, even the basement. Nothing was found. On the kitchen counter, a note penned by Victoria surfaced. "Andrew, by the time you read this, the kids and I will be embarking upon our new life together." I attempted to handle the situation legally, but your actions prompted me. Dylan and I have been devising this plan for months. We know you'll try to locate us, but by then, we will be comfortably settled somewhere you wouldn't suspect. Tommy and Lisa necessitate a mother that advocates for them, not one who succumbs to courts and lawyers. Avoid reaching out to me. I'll inform you about their condition when it's suitable. I promptly contacted 911. The police responded swiftly, yet the officer handling my statement clarified this wasn't abduction since Victoria was their biological mother. It was custodial interference, severe, but the legal procedure would take time. How much time? I inquired. The answer could range from days to weeks. She had a head start, and if she exercised intelligence in avoiding credit transactions and obvious locations, it might prolong the search. I phoned Mitchell, who instantly filed emergency petitions with the court. Judge Mills issued an arrest warrant for Victoria and ordered law enforcement to locate the children and bring them back to me forthwith, but Victoria and Dylan had thoughtfully prepared for this. Their phones were deactivated. Victoria's vehicle was discovered deserted at the airport. However, no airline tickets were found under her genuine names. Dylan withdrew considerable sums from his bank accounts over the preceding weeks. Mitchell procured private investigators. I contacted every friend, family member, and acquaintance Victoria had mentioned in the past. I posted on social media, reached out to missing persons organizations, even made a public plea on local news for any information about my children's whereabouts. The most distressing aspect was uncertainty about Tommy and Lisa's well-being. Were they aware of being kidnapped? Did Victoria inform them that their father didn't want them anymore? Were they frightened, perplexed, wondering why they couldn't contact me? For 3 days, I barely rested. I stayed by the phone awaiting updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment building within 100 miles, displaying their pictures to anyone willing to look. Victoria's car was left at the airport, but no evidence of plane tickets under her true names was found. Over the past few weeks, Dylan withdrew substantial amounts of money from his accounts. Mitchell engaged private investigators. I called every friend, relative, and acquaintance Victoria had mentioned to me. I posted on social media, contacted missing children organizations, even made an appeal on local news for any information about my children's location. The hardest part was not knowing if Tommy and Lisa were safe. Had they been told they were kidnapped? Did Victoria tell them their father no longer wanted them? Were they scared, confused, wondering why they couldn't reach me? For 3 days I barely slept, constantly waiting for updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment complex within 100 miles, showing their photos to anyone who would look. Victoria's car was found abandoned at the airport with no proof of plane tickets in her real name. Over the last weeks, Dylan withdrew significant sums from his accounts. Mitchell engaged private investigators. I called every friend, family member, and acquaintance mentioned by Victoria. I posted on social media, contacted missing persons organizations, even made a public plea on local news for any information about my children's whereabouts. The most challenging aspect was the uncertainty regarding Tommy and Lisa's well-being. Were they aware of being kidnapped? Did Victoria inform them that their father didn't want them anymore? Were they scared, bewildered, questioning why they couldn't get in touch with me? For 3 days, I barely rested, eagerly awaiting updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment complex within 100 miles, showing their photos to anyone willing to look. 4. Victoria's car was discovered deserted at the airport. There were no records of plane tickets under her true names. Dylan took out large amounts of cash from his accounts during the previous weeks. Mitchell hired private investigators. I contacted every friend, relative, and acquaintance mentioned by Victoria. I posted on social media, reached out to missing children organizations, even made a public appeal on local news for any information about my children's whereabouts. The hardest part was not knowing if Tommy and Lisa were safe. Had they been told they had been kidnapped? Did Victoria inform them that their father no longer wanted them? Were they frightened, confused, wondering why they couldn't contact me? For 3 days I barely slept, always waiting for updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment complex within 100 miles, showing their photos to anyone who would look. 5. Victoria's vehicle was left at the airport with no proof of plane tickets in her real name. Over the past few weeks, Dylan withdrew considerable sums from his accounts. Mitchell hired private investigators. I called every friend, family member, and acquaintance mentioned by Victoria. I posted on social media, contacted missing children organizations, even made a public plea on local news for any information about my children's location. The most distressing aspect was uncertainty regarding Tommy and Lisa's well-being. Had they been told they were kidnapped? Did Victoria inform them that their father no longer wanted them? Were they scared, bewildered, wondering why they couldn't reach me? For 3 days I barely rested, constantly waiting for updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment complex within 100 miles, showing their photos to anyone willing to look. 6. Victoria's car was found abandoned at the airport. There were no records of plane tickets under her real names. Over the past weeks, Dylan withdrew large amounts of money from his accounts. Mitchell procured private investigators. I called every friend, relative, and acquaintance mentioned by Victoria. I posted on social media, contacted missing children organizations, even made a public plea on local news for any information about my children's whereabouts. The hardest part was not knowing if Tommy and Lisa were safe. Had they been informed that they had been kidnapped? Did Victoria tell them their father no longer wanted them? Were they terrified, puzzled, wondering why they couldn't contact me? For 3 days I barely slept, always waiting for updates from investigators. I drove to every hotel, motel, and apartment complex within 100 miles, showing their photos to anyone who would look. On Saturday night, a week after Judge Mills granted custody to me, my phone rang from an unknown number. "Daddy," it was Lisa's trembling voice. "Lisa, dear, where are you? Are you all right? I don't know where we are. Mommy said we're on an adventure, but I want us to return home. Tommy wants to speak with you too, Daddy." Upon hearing Tommy, I could tell he had been crying. "Mommy claimed you were occupied with work and couldn't look after us anymore, but is that true?" I responded, "No, Tommy, that isn't the truth at all. I am searching for you right now. More than anything in the world, I want you to come home." After informing Mother that I wished to call you, she said, "The line disconnected." I immediately contacted the police to report the contact. They were able to trace the call to a cell tower in Nevada, about 800 miles away. Since they had crossed state lines, the FBI got involved. That night, law enforcement located Victoria, Dylan, and my children at a motel outside Las Vegas. The apprehension was quick and methodical. Victoria faced charges for custodial disruption and court contempt. Dylan was indicted as an accomplice, yet the harm had already been inflicted. When Tommy and Lisa were restored to me yesterday, they appeared altered. Tommy inquired repeatedly if he was in trouble and whether I was upset with him. Lisa clung to me, yet continually glanced over her shoulder, seemingly anticipating Victoria's return to take her away once more. "Mommy claimed you didn't want us because we were too much hassle." In a quiet voice last night as I put Lisa to bed for the first time in 4 days, she confided, "That isn't true, dear. You and Tommy are the most valuable aspects of my entire universe. Mommy made a mistake, and she will have to endure the repercussions." Tommy attempted to act like a little man again by saying, "Dad, I knew something was amiss." Mommy continued to assert that we were going on an exciting trip, but she appeared fearful, and Dylan kept casting furtive glances around as if sensing someone was tracking us. "I intended to reach out to you, yet I was informed your phone was malfunctioning. The anguish I experienced upon learning about Victoria's affair pales in comparison to this revelation. It wasn't merely infidelity. She manipulated our offspring as tools to evade the repercussions of her actions. As of now, Victoria remains imprisoned, awaiting trial. Dylan managed to post bail but faces federal indictments. The potential for Victoria's parental rights being drastically limited or revoked entirely depends on the verdict of the criminal proceedings. Mitchell informs me we hold valid grounds for a civil lawsuit involving emotional distress and expenditures related to searching, psychological counseling for the children. However, in truth, I yearn for my kids to regain a sense of safety, as Tommy begins therapy this week. Lisa has been tormented by nightmares. They both continue to express fear that their mother may take them away again. In response, I've installed new security measures, including locks and cameras, even contemplated relocating to another residence altogether. In my favor, the verdict was passed by the judge. I presumed our ordeal had concluded. To my dismay, it marked the start of another form of torment. Victoria's ultimate act of deceit wasn't aimed at me, but instead targeted Tommy and Lisa, those who had stood by her through all her misdeeds, showering her with unconditional love. The proverbial saying goes that justice is sweet, yet sometimes the cost of triumph outweighs any anticipated amount. I emerged victorious in the legal dispute, but my children lost their sense of safety and trust. This wound, unlike a divorce decree, takes significantly longer to heal. For those facing similar challenges in family court, remember, winning custody is merely the beginning. It's crucial to safeguard your kids' emotional well-being, help them cope with betrayal and trauma, and rebuild their sense of security. This process doesn't halt when a judge signs an order. Unfortunately, those who are supposed to cherish us most are often capable of inflicting the deepest hurts. Unconditional love, in essence, serves as a protective barrier against harm, even when it stems from unexpected sources like those who should be offering the same care. Fortunately, Tommy and Lisa have returned home and are safe now. We are collaborating daily to restore the trust that Victoria destroyed. This isn't the triumph I envisioned, but it marks the start of the healing process we all urgently require. That is my narrative. Thank you for lending your ears, and if this struck a chord with you, don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to share in the comments where you're tuning in from, and I encourage those who feel comfortable to do so to disclose their own experiences. Knowing we aren't alone in our struggles is immensely empowering.